Hello students, in the last class we spoke about the chapter of national income, where we discussed how to calculate national income, what is the meaning of national income, then what are the things that you have to consider while you're calculating national income. Then we also saw certain terms like GDP, GNP, NDP, NNP. We also saw what is personal disposable income, what's personal income. So all of these terms were focused very well by us in the previous chapter. Today we are going to start with a new chapter, and the name of the chapter is Theory of Employment and Output. Now, in this chapter, we will be talking about what is employment, what is output, plus, we will also be seeing some of the famous economists have given us some different theories. So, let's have a look at these topics, okay? So, the first thing that you need to know is something about full employment, okay? Now, full employment is actually not easy to achieve in any of the economy. As the definition goes, full employment is a situation in which all those who are willing to work and want to work are at an all those who are able and want to work at existing rate of wages get work without undue difficulty. So without any difficulties they are getting job. And when we say able to work, we consider the age criteria here. So above 18 years it is allowed in India. So above 18 years, people who are willing to work, they easily get work at the existing wage rate. So that is the meaning of full employment. Okay, it is the classical theory of employment. What does the classical theory of employment assume? Okay, so it assumes that there should be perfect competition. First one, okay, we will see the statement given by classical theory by JB Say. Before that, we need to understand what are the assumptions of this theory. First assumption is perfect competition. So in this theory, it is said to be that there is no government intervention, there is no transportation cost, there are many sellers, many buyers, all the buyers having perfect knowledge about the market, the sellers have knowledge about what the buyers want. So that is called as perfect competition. I'm sure that you must have studied this terminology in the microeconomics topics also. Yeah, then a person is a rational man. Rational man means he is in his senses, he understands what he is doing, he understands what he wants to do. Next one is money is the only medium of exchange. So if we want to do any kind of exchange, so money is the only medium here. Okay, next is about the flexibility of prices, wages and interest. So when we say this, that means classical economists assume that prices, wages and interests are flexible. They can rise or fall to any extent according to the requirement. As per the requirements, the prices of different goods and services, the wages that we are paying to the people, and the interest that is there, whether it is the interest of borrowing or interest on the deposits, it can rise or fall, however, as per the requirements. Then next is laissez-faire. Laissez-faire means there is no there is no intervention from the government. So government is not at all getting involved in the economy. Yes, the next one is there is equality between savings and investments. So whatever we are saving, it is equal to the investments. Say for example, I'm saving 100 rupees, so 100 rupees is the investment. S is equals to I. Okay, then short run production, it always believes in the short run production. It implies that technique of production, that land, capital etc remain constant. Okay, and labor alone is a variable factor, where we had studied about the law of variable proportion. Yeah, it is also called as law of diminishing returns. So it is studying the short run function. And last is the closed economy. It's a closed economy. So you see that closed economy means no foreign trade is allowed. Okay, foreign trade has no effect on the economy. So these are certain there are many of these if you see, there are many of these assumptions which are quite unrealistic. Okay, but these are the assumptions of classical theory of employment. Now let's move on to the next slide. This is the statement given by JB Say. Now JB Say is a famous economist who says that an economic rule that production is the source of demand. According to Say's law, when individual produces a product or service, he or she gets paid for that work and is then able to use that pay to demand other goods and services. So if you observe here, what JB Say is saying, that when there is production, okay, so when there is production, there is demand, one thing. Second thing, the individual, whatever production is happening, from that production the individual is getting wages. From the wages that he gets, he is able to demand in the market. He is able to buy different goods and services from the market. Yeah. So let's proceed with this law, that Say's law. What are the assumptions? Now, in Say's law also there are many definitions given in this. Like JB Say has given a definition that supply creates its own demand. Okay, another definition is by J.S. Mill, that consumption coexists with production. Production is the sole cause of demand. It never furnishes supply without furnishing demand, both at the same time and to an equal extent. Okay, so these are certain definitions given. Let us move on to what are the assumptions of Say's law. The very first assumption is about perfect competition. Okay, so first assumption is that the Say's law says that there should be a perfectly competitive economy. Perfectly competitive economy as in large number of sellers, large number of buyers, sellers selling the same product, then there is no government intervention, there is no transportation costs. Okay, so these are certain assumptions that come under perfect competition itself. So first is perfect competitive market, second is flexible prices. When it is flexible prices, the law also assumes that the wage rate, interests are perfectly flexible, they adjust according to the market. Okay, so if the demand is less than the supply, then the price must fall. Okay, and consequently the demand will rise, become equal to the supply. If there is unemployment in the country, the wage rate will have and as a result the level of employment will increase. Okay, next is money avail. Now what is money avail? Another assumption is that money is the only medium of exchange. Okay, so if any exchange has to happen, say for example I have to pay for the wages, then I can pay only in monetary terms. This is another assumption given by JB Say. Next one is no hoarding. The law assumes that people spend all the money they get and nothing is hoarded, nothing is saved. Okay, so this is what he is saying, JB Say. All income is spent either on consumption or capital goods. Now what are consumption goods? Consumption goods are consumer goods, like when we buy whatever we consume immediately after or whatever we buy as consumers, that is consumption goods. Simple. Whatever we are buying as producers or as manufacturers, maybe we are buying a machine or we're buying a land for production purpose, that would be called as capital goods. Okay, Next is state is neutral. Now what is state is neutral? It is also assumed that state does not interfere with the activities of the economy. When we talking about state here, we mean to say the government. So the government is neutral, the government is not intervening at all in the economy. And last is unlimited opportunities of labor and capital. That's the last point. So supply of labor and capital in the economy is perfectly elastic. In other words, supply of labor and capital can be increased to any extent and in any proportion in the enterprise. So it is perfectly elastic. So these are certain assumptions given by JBC, which say that only with these assumptions, okay, we can study the law clearly. We can fulfill the statement of the law. Okay. So this is about it. Let us move on to what are the criticisms of the law. Was that why is this law criticized? Okay, what are the drawbacks of this law? So the very first drawback is general overproduction is possible. So since he says that there is no government intervention, okay, and whatever is earned is all spent. So if these are the kind of assumptions which JBC is doing, then the first statement might stand true, that is there could be chances of overproduction. Okay, so uh, uh, in this case, it may not be possible that the investment decisions of those who invest and the saving decisions of those who have saved should be identical. Okay, so this is one of the statement. If planned savings is greater than planned investments, overproduction becomes possible. So if your savings are greater than your investments, then there are chances of overproduction. Next one is lack of automatic adjustments. So as JB says that whatever are the prices or whatever are the wage rates or whatever are the interests, they will automatically adjust. But that does not happen in real life. Okay, never can the wage rates or the interest rates adjust automatically. They require some external factor intervening and adjusting these prices or these rates. Okay, then says law is not logical. There are certain assumptions which he is making, like I already said, that they will not stand true. There cannot be a situation of perfect competition, there cannot be a situation of no government intervention at all, there cannot be a situations where savings is equals to investments. Okay, so this is not ideal situation in the economy. So therefore we might say that says law is not logical. And the last one is equilibrium between savings and investment. That never happens. He says that whatever you save, that much you invest. So no, it cannot happen like that. So savings might exceed investments follow savings. Yeah, so these are certain things that you have to consider when you are studying the Say's law. Okay, let's move on to Keynesian theory of unemployment. So based on this guy's theory, that is JB says theory, Keynesian has given us theory, which is Keynesian's theory of unemployment. What does he say now? As per Keynesian's theory of employment, effective demand signifies the money spent on consumption of goods and services and on investments. Okay, so what is effective demand? So effective demand is when you're spending money on different types of goods, on different types of services, and on investments also, when and you're doing investments also. So that will be called as effective demand. So the total expenditure is equals to the national income, which is equivalent to the national output. Okay, this is another statement that he gives, that whatever we are spending is equals to whatever the country is earning, and that is equals to whatever the country is generating, whatever output the country is generating. Next is therefore effective demand is equals to total expenditure as well as national income and national output. So we can say that effective demand becomes equals to the total expenditure, it becomes equal to the national income, and becomes national to the total output. Okay, what are the assumptions that Keynesian gives? So Keynesian gives a lot of assumptions. The very first assumption that he gives is short period. Okay, like we saw in the case of JBC. So similar one of the assumptions, short period. So whatever we are studying for a short period of time, where there is one fixed factor and other factors are variable. Okay, then he also says that let there be a closed economy. So uh, he says that it is based on the assumption that a developed capitalist economy is closed economy, wherein level of income and employment remains unaffected by the foreign trade. So foreign trade is not affecting the level of employment and the level of trade. That's what he also says. The next one is ignores the role of the government as a spender and taxer. Okay, so ignores the role of the government as a spender and taxer. Keynesian ignores the role of the government as a spender or a taxer. Keynesian ignored the effect of the government sector in the aggregate demand, which means that he also is assuming that there is no government intervention. Next is fixed prices. All the goods and services have fixed prices. Excess capacity is available with the producer, so the producer is not producing with all the capacity that he has. Then labor has money illusions. So Keynesian theory employment assumes that a misunderstanding is found among the laborers that value of money remains constant. It means that laborers believe that proportion in which money wages increase is the same proportion of real wage also increase. So that's an illusion that people have. Okay, so which means that if your wages are increasing, okay, you need to understand the real wages also, the inflation also. So all laborers do not have the understanding of inflation rate, and therefore they feel that if our salary is increasing it is good. No, they have to compare it with the inflation rate also. Next is no time lag. Another assumption is that all the different factors get um, get adjusted without any loss of time. The period which income increases is the period in which consumption and investments also increase. So if consumption is increasing, then investment is also increasing. And last is saving investment function, which means saving is a function of income. Okay, so if your income increases, your savings also will increase. This is the last assumption that he makes. Okay, however, even this uh, this law is facing some criticisms. What are the criticisms it faces? So let's understand the first criticism. The concept of equilibrium is self-contradictory, which means that Keynesian was a view that economy equilibrium was not possible at less than full employment level. Many economists have severely criticized this view of Keynes. So Keynes says that economic equilibrium cannot be achieved if there is less than full employment. There has to be full employment if we have to achieve equilibrium. And it is very static law. It ignores long term period. Like you saw, it is assuming a short term period, but if you have to study this law in a long term period, it fails to consider that. And there are many unrealistic assumptions of perfect competition made by Keynesian. So I told you that perfect competition actually does not exist, because the kind of characteristics that perfect competitions have, they do not stand true. So this was it. What all did we cover in this session? We spoke about theory of employment and output. In this theory we spoke about the two famous theories, which was theory of classical the classical theory, which is according to JBC, and the second theory was Keynesian theory. Okay, there were certain assumptions given by the classical theory, and there were certain assumptions given by the Keynesian theory. Okay, both of these theories have faced a lot of criticism. Okay, so how these questions are asked, basically they are asked for 15 marks or 10 marks. You will be given a theory that explain the classical theory of employment. If this question is asked, you need to elaborate on what is the classical theory, what are the assumptions, what is the statement, and what are the criticisms. Accordingly, you can get more marks. Another few assumptions, another few criticisms are there um of the Keynesian theory. We'll just have a look at them as well. So few of the other is that the assumption is based on closed economy. Okay, so it says that foreign trade does not have any effect. So we can just add that as well. You all can add that for more marks. So assumption is based on the closed economy. Okay, so in this basically we focus on that the foreign trade is not having any impact on the economy. Okay, and another assumption that Keynesian says is that one very unrealistic assumptions about perfect competition. Next is about one of the assumption is that it is over aggressive, as in it criticizes the JB says theory, and it is proposing its own theory, but its own theory also has many drawbacks. And another is that it ignores cost push inflation. Now what is cost push inflation? Cost push inflation means when the factors of production have become expensive, okay, because of which the final product which is there is also turned out to be high priced. So that is called as cost push inflation. So what ideally happens is, say for example, the raw material cost has increased. So if the raw material cost has increased, to make a notebook, before I was incurring a cost of 5 rupees, but now I'm incurring a cost of 20 rupees maybe. Okay, so directly 15 rupees inflation, that's cost push inflation. So what I will do is I'll pass on this 15 rupees to the consumer. So the consumer has to pay additional 15 rupees on the price that I'm going to charge him, right? So that becomes a cost push inflation. So this is what we studied in today's class. You all can just uh, check for any other doubts you all have. And these questions might be asked in two ways. Like I said, it could be either asked like mention the JB says law and explain the JB says law, or it could be asked as what is Keynesian laws and explain the Keynesian laws. Okay, there are no diagrams required to be drawn in these laws. You just have to focus on the theory and elaborate each and every point nicely, right? Thank you.